Welcome back for another deep dive. This time, we're going to be tackling the question, will we see true AI in our lifetime? The kind we imagine in science fiction. And how will we even know when we get there? You sent over some really interesting material on this, by the way.
Oh, yeah, it's a fascinating mix.
It is. Reflections from Sam Altman, a deep dive interview with Jan LeCun.
That was a good one.
Oh, I know. And even a paper from the dawn of computer science, Alan Turing's 1950 work on computing machinery and intelligence.
Yeah, it really shows how long we've been grappling with these questions.
Right, it's like way back to the beginning. So before we can even try to predict the future of AI, I think we need to define our terms here. What do we even mean when we say true AI? And how is that different from the AI we see all around us today?
That's a great place to start. Jan LeCun in his interview makes a really important distinction here. He points out that even the most impressive AI we have now, like, the large language models that can write poems and pass bar exams.
Yeah, they're pretty mind-blowing.
Right, they're really something. But they're still missing something fundamental.
Okay, I'm all ears. What's the missing piece?
He argues that these systems are essentially just very good at pattern recognition. They can manipulate language in really sophisticated ways, but they don't actually understand the world, the way we do. It's like they're answering a question while totally distracted. They can, spit out a grammatically correct response, but they're not really engaging with the meaning behind it.
So it's like having a conversation with someone who's only half listening. They might say all the right words, but you get the feeling they're not really present in the conversation.
Right, exactly. And that lack of true understanding is a major roadblock on the path to what we call artificial general intelligence, or AGI.
AGI, okay.
AGI wouldn't just be about mimicking human abilities. It would be about, having a flexible, adaptable intelligence that can learn and solve problems in a wide range of contexts, just like humans can.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's not just about being good at one specific task, like playing chess or writing code, but about having that general problem-solving ability that allows you to tackle new and unexpected challenges.
Right. Think about a 10-year-old child. Okay, so they can't write legal briefs or compose symphonies, but
they can do a lot of other things.
Oh, absolutely. They can do things that our current AI systems really struggle with, like navigating a messy room, understanding social cues, or figuring out how to use a new tool.
Yeah, you're right. Those seemingly simple tasks actually require a pretty sophisticated understanding of the world.
They really do. And that brings us back to one of the key challenges in AI development. How do we teach machines to learn and understand the world in a way that's more like how humans do? This is where Alan Turing's ideas from 1950 become surprisingly relevant.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting.
So Turing, even back then, he recognized that simply programming machines with rules wouldn't be enough to achieve true intelligence.
We can't just, hardwire it in.
Right. Nope. So he proposed a pretty radical idea, creating what he called child machines. These would be systems with basic learning mechanisms that would then be subjected to a kind of digital education, much like we raise and educate children.
So instead of trying to program intelligence directly, we create a system that can learn and develop on its own through experience.
Exactly. Turing believed that by observing how these child machines learn and evolve, we could gain insights into the very nature of intelligence itself. He even used the example of Helen Keller, who learned to communicate and understand the world despite being deaf and blind, to illustrate his point.
Wow, that's a powerful example. It suggests that intelligence isn't tied to specific senses or abilities, but rather to the capacity to learn and adapt, regardless of the input.
Precisely. And Turing went even further, arguing that the creators of such a learning machine might not even fully understand how it works.
That's a little bit unsettling.
It is. It's this thought-provoking idea that we could create something more intelligent than ourselves without even fully comprehending its inner workings.
That's both exciting and a little bit terrifying, to be honest.
It is. It highlights the need to think very carefully about the implications of AGI. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, let's come back to the present. How do we measure progress toward AGI? And what are some of the most promising approaches being explored, right now?
That's where things get really tricky. The old standby, the Turing test, where a machine tries to fool a human into thinking it's another person, it just doesn't cut it anymore.
Yeah, with AI that can write sonnets and hold, surprisingly coherent conversations, the Turing test seems almost, quaint.
Right. It shows us how good AI is getting at mimicking human behavior. but it doesn't really tell us if a machine truly understands the world or if it's just manipulating symbols, symbols it doesn't actually comprehend.
So it's like judging a chef's skill by how well they can arrange food on a plate. It might look delicious, but you don't actually know if they can cook. Exactly. So how do we test for true understanding then, for that deeper level of intelligence that goes beyond just mimicking human behavior?
That's the million-dollar question.
It is, and there's no easy answer. Some researchers are proposing tasks that require a combination of skills,
Yeah.
things that we typically associate with intelligence. Problem solving, planning, creativity, even social intelligence.
So instead of just asking a machine to, hold a conversation, we might challenge it to design a scientific experiment, or write a compelling story, or even negotiate a complex deal.
Exactly. Those are tasks that require a much broader range of cognitive abilities. But even then we run into the problem of, well, how do you define and measure success, right? What makes a good scientific experiment or a compelling story?
It's all subjective.
Yeah, it is. These are subjective judgments. It's hard to create objective benchmarks for them.
It seems like we're almost chasing a moving target. As AI gets better at mimicking human behavior, the bar for what constitutes true intelligence keeps getting higher.
That's a great way to put it. And it's one reason why predicting when we'll achieve AGI is so difficult. We're not just trying to replicate a specific set of abilities. We're trying to create something fundamentally new. It's like trying to predict when we'll discover life on another planet we don't even know what that life might look like, or how to recognize it.
So how do we navigate this uncertainty? If the goalposts keep shifting, how do we even know if we're heading in the right direction?
I think that's where those realistic expectations come in. We need to be careful not to overhype every new AI breakthrough as a sign that AGI is just around the corner.
It's easy to get caught up in the excitement.
Yeah.
Especially with, all the rapid advancements we're seeing.
It is exciting. And those advancements are real, but it's important to understand the limitations. Take those multimodal systems that are making headlines, like Google's Gemini, for example.
Yeah, I've been hearing a lot about Gemini.
They're incredibly impressive. They can process different types of data like text and images, and even generate creative outputs.
It sounds like it can even generate different creative text formats like poems, code, scripts, musical pieces, emails, letters.
Yeah, it's a really powerful tool. But remember, even with those capabilities, it's still reliant on massive data sets and statistical patterns. It doesn't have that deep understanding of the world, or the ability to learn and adapt in truly novel situations like we were talking about earlier.
So while it can mimic the forms of human creativity, it's not necessarily creating anything truly original or insightful. It's more like a sophisticated remix artist than a true composer,
That's a great analogy, and it highlights the distinction between, mimicking intelligence and actually possessing it.
But even if we're not there yet, are there certain areas of research that seem particularly promising on the path to AGI?
Absolutely. One area that's generating a lot of interest is neurosymbolic AI.
Neurosymbolic AI, okay.
It's an approach that tries to combine the strengths of deep learning, which is great at pattern recognition, with symbolic reasoning, which is more like how we think about logic and abstract concepts.
So it's like trying to bridge the gap between the intuitive, subconscious processing that happens in our brains.
Right.
And the more deliberate, conscious reasoning that we use to solve problems.
Exactly. It's a really complex challenge, but the hope is that by combining these two approaches, we can create AI systems that are both, powerful and interpretable.
That interpretability piece seems crucial.
Yeah.
Especially if we're talking about developing AI that we can trust and collaborate with.
It is. If we want AI to be more than just a tool, right? If we want it to be a true partner in problem solving, we need to be able to understand how it's making decisions, not just trust that it's doing the right thing.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
But going back to something you mentioned earlier, how does open source development fit into all of this? Why is that so important, especially in the context of AGI?
Well, Jan LeCun is a strong advocate for open source AI, and I think he makes some compelling arguments. First, it promotes diversity and helps prevent bias. If AI development is concentrated in the hands of a few powerful companies, their values and priorities, will inevitably shape the systems they create.
So it's like having all the news come from a single source. You're only getting one perspective on the world.
Exactly. Open source development allows for a wider range of voices and perspectives to contribute, which can lead to more robust and equitable AI systems.
That makes sense. And I imagine it also helps accelerate progress by allowing researchers to build on each other's work, right?
It does. It's like having a global team of scientists collaborating on a cure for a disease. The more minds working on the problem, the faster we're likely to find a solution.
So open source development could be key to not only developing AGI safely and responsibly, but also to achieving it, like sooner rather than later.
It's a compelling argument, and one that's worth considering, as we move forward in this rapidly evolving field. But even with the most collaborative and open approach, we need to be realistic about the challenges ahead.
So where does that leave us? What's the current state of AGI? What are the most advanced systems out there right now? And what can they actually do?
Well, that's the $64,000 question, isn't it?
It really is.
We don't have true AGI yet, not by any stretch. But we are seeing some really impressive advancements, in
Yeah.
systems that are starting to exhibit some of the characteristics that we associate with general intelligence.
Right, right. So I guess my question is where are we seeing the most exciting progress? What stands out to you as particularly promising?
One area where we're seeing some remarkable progress is in multimodal AI systems.
Multimodal.
These are systems that can process and integrate information from multiple sources,
Yeah.
like text, images, video, even audio.
So it's instead of just language or image recognition, it's combining those abilities,
Yeah.
kind of like how we experience the world.
Exactly. Think about how seamlessly you navigate the world,
Yeah.
using all of your senses. Multimodal AI is kind of aiming to replicate that ability, allow machines to learn and reason from a richer, more diverse set of inputs.
That's really cool.
It is. A great example of this is Google's Gemini 1.5.
Oh, yeah, Gemini. I've been hearing a lot of buzz about that.
It's a multimodal model that can understand and generate text, images.
Huh.
It can even generate code, all within the same system.
Wow. It seems like it can even do different kinds of creative text formats, too, like poems, code, scripts, even musical pieces, emails, letters.
Yeah, you name it.
Sounds almost too good to be true.
It's certainly impressive, and I think it hints at the potential of multimodal AI. But even with these advancements, Gemini is still far from AGI. It's still trained on massive amounts of data and relies heavily on statistical patterns to generate its output. It doesn't have that deep understanding of the world or the ability to learn and adapt in truly novel situations that we would expect from a generally intelligent system.
Right. So it's more like I don't know, like a really sophisticated tool than a truly independent thinker.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. It can create amazing things, but only within the boundaries of what it's been trained on.
Right, right. So are there other areas of research that are kind of focusing on developing that deeper level of understanding
Yeah.
and adaptability?
Absolutely. Another area of really active research is in what's called neurosymbolic AI.
Neurosymbolic.
This is a field that tries to combine the strengths of deep learning, which is really good at pattern recognition, with symbolic reasoning, which is more like how humans think about logic and abstract concepts.
So it's like trying to bridge the gap between the intuitive subconscious processing that happens in our brains
Right.
and the more deliberate conscious reasoning that we use to solve problems.
Exactly. The hope is that by combining these two approaches, we can create AI systems that are, that are both powerful and interpretable,
Interpretable meaning.
meaning we can understand how they're making decisions.
Got it.
And this is important not only for safety and trust, but also for developing AI that can truly collaborate with humans, as partners, not just as tools.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Especially if we're talking about AGI, which would have the potential to make decisions with really far-reaching consequences.
Absolutely. And this kind of brings us back to the question of open source development, right? LeCun argues that open source is really essential, not only for fostering diversity and preventing bias, but also for accelerating progress in these more challenging areas of AI research. By sharing knowledge and resources openly, we can collectively push the boundaries of what's possible, right?
Yeah.
And ensure that the benefits of AGI are shared widely.
So by sharing ideas and code openly, we can all learn from each other's, successes and failures and hopefully move the field forward faster.
Exactly. The more eyes we have on these problems, the better. And open source also allows for greater scrutiny and accountability. If the code is out in the open, anyone can examine it, identify potential flaws or biases, which is crucial for building trust in AI systems, especially as they become more sophisticated.
Okay, I'm convinced. Open source seems like the way to go if we want to develop AGI responsibly and make sure it benefits all of humanity.
I agree. It's not just about achieving AGI, right? It's about shaping the kind of future we want to create with this technology. A future where AI empowers us, not replaces us, where it amplifies our intelligence and helps us solve the big challenges facing humanity.
This has been a really mind-blowing deep dive. We've gone from defining AGI and examining its limitations to exploring potential paths forward and even, considering the ethical implications.
It's a field full of both promise and peril, and it's one that will continue to shape our world in really profound ways.
Absolutely. A huge thank you to you for guiding us through this fascinating landscape. I always learn so much from our conversations.
The pleasure is all mine.
And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the future of AI. As we've seen, there's still a long way to go before we achieve true AGI, but the journey is, it's full of exciting possibilities. The future of AI is not something that'll be handed to us, right? It's something we'll create together through our choices, our research, our collective imagination.
I'm reminded of something Jan LeCun said in that interview. He said, intelligence is the commodity that is most in demand.
And if AI can help us amplify our collective intelligence, well, maybe we could use it to solve some of the biggest challenges facing humanity. Right?
Yeah, indeed. It's a future worth striving for.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a final thought. If AI systems become like extensions of ourselves, amplifying our capabilities and helping us solve those complex problems, what kind of future will we choose to build? What role do we want AI to play in our lives? And how can we ensure that its development reflects, our shared values, our aspirations? The future of AI is not predetermined. It's up to us to shape it wisely and responsibly.
Those are the questions we all need to be asking ourselves.
Absolutely. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, keep learning.